We're going to begin, though, with a state of truth in America, and it is not pretty. Not pretty. At least in terms of what we consider our traditional news sources. Look, newspapers, dying. Once owned by small to medium-sized local business people who actually lived where their papers are printed and where the reporting takes place, now they're owned by a few multi-billionaires who care little about the people who actually live in those communities that they serve, not to mention journalism. Network television. Since the advent of Fox News, it's all about the right or the left, right? Rarely is it about the news. Radio. It is now reserved as a destination or singular vehicle used to target angry white men in the hopes of making them even angrier. Local television. It's being bought off and owned by a few billionaires, most of whom could care less about news, but are very interested in using those airwaves that they bought to proliferate their personal and professional agendas, which more often than not is simply about, you got it, becoming more rich, making another billion or two. If there's one single word that ties together all of that media decay, you know what it is? Money. And that money has been used to strip away whatever protections were once in place to preserve the worthiness and the independence of news. We're going to begin our coverage tonight with RT correspondent John Huddy on what happened to news in America.
Once upon a time, there was something called the Fairness Doctrine. The Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, enacted it way back in 1949, the dawn of modern television, when the FCC was issuing broadcast licenses to television stations nationwide. And the big three networks, CBS, NBC, and ABC, ruled the airwaves. The government wanted to promote a basic standard of fairness on television. Congress was concerned that the networks could set their own political agendas and shut out any dissenting voices. For 38 years, the Fairness Doctrine survived until the FCC repealed it in 1987. Today, the FCC still has the equal time rule in place for political candidates on television and radio, but it really applies more to political advertising, and the cable networks don't have to follow it. If Donald Trump wants to call into his favorite Fox News show like Hannity, he can, and he does, a lot. Trump even questioned if his fellow Republicans should receive equal time on television due to what he said was unfair coverage by the late-night comedians and shows like Saturday Night Live. The president took some heat on that one. The fact is that massive media companies in the United States are all vying for control of the airwaves and the political message. CNN and MSNBC have a constant and steady roster of liberal politicians, analysts, and pundits. And now, so do the local television affiliates, both left and right-leaning. Take Sinclair Broadcast Group, for instance. It wants to rival Fox News as America's conservative broadcast news outlet, and it has come close. In 2018, Sinclair made a move to acquire the Tribune Media Group for $4 billion. If successful, it would have thrust Sinclair into 73% of U.S. households. Well, the merger failed and was a public embarrassment for the company and its disgraced chairman, David Smith. But Sinclair remains one of the largest television station owners in the United States and among numerous media conglomerates in America's ever-changing and growing media landscape of broadcast news, social media, and OTT streaming services. So while there is plenty more to choose from, whatever your political position or persuasion, the good old days of the basic standard of fairness are over. Long live fair and balanced news. Well, speaking of fair and balanced news, Rick, the United Kingdom, in comparison to the U.S., still has some rules and regs having to do with media fairness, and specifically what's called the due impartiality law that requires, among other things, that broadcast news must be reported with due accuracy and impartiality. So meaning if you have one point of view, you have to have the other side on as well. And the U.K. does enforce this rule, but that doesn't mean there isn't political dissension in the media in the U.K. The U.K. tabloids and newspapers are among some of the most politically divisive on earth, Rick. Back to you.
With the use of the term fair and balanced, John Huddy reporting with his tongue firmly placed on the side of his cheek from Miami. We thank you, John. I'm Rick Sanchez. You found us on YouTube, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm also live every night at 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern on DirecTV and Dish and cable and satellite, the RT app, and Pluto TV. I'll see you there.